Alright, so in the second video we're going to be looking more at what protein is as far as a nutrient. So by the end of this video you can pause this and read through them, but it's essentially going to be looking at what our protein needs are and things that are related to that as far as proteins go. So protein can come from a lot of different sources. It essentially can come from any of the food groups, but there are differences in the quality and the amount of protein that comes from these two groups. So as far as food groups go, the majority of your protein that you're going to get from your diet are going to come from the protein group, the meat, poultry, fish, nuts, and legume group. And then there's also going to be a significant contribution from the dairy group. What this graph is showing is just where the majority of the U.S. is getting their protein. So beef and you can see beef and poultry are huge contributors, but milk does as well. Now, other things such as the grains and vegetable groups can also contribute protein as well. But it generally doesn't provide quite as much of the high quality proteins that we're going to look at. So when we're talking about protein quality, there's a number of things that we need to take into consideration. One thing that we need to consider are what are the proteins our body actually needs. So we can take these amino acids and divide them up into essential amino acids, so amino acids your body can't make, and then non-essential amino acids. So these are amino acids that your body can make from other precursors. Other ones with asterisks are under certain conditions, so if you're deficient in something else you might have trouble making these. But under normal circumstances, these are the non-essential amino acids, and these over here are the essential ones. You don't have to memorize this list, just know that there are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Now, what we're concerned with then is getting the essential amino acids into our bodies, because these are the ones that we can't make. So when we look at proteins, we're looking at the composition, what amino acids they have, and how or what is the quality of them. So most of your meat and dairy and animal proteins are going to give you quality proteins that contain all of the essential amino acids. You can also get this from certain plant foods such as soybeans. Surprisingly, potatoes also have a complete protein or complete amino acid profile, although it takes a lot of potatoes. It would take a lot of potatoes to actually meet that requirement. So occasionally you might have foods that are limiting in one or more of the amino acids. So if you would look at the proteins that are in these foods, you might find that they're abundant in one set of the essential amino acids but deficient in the others. So legumes would be an example of this. They'll commonly have isoleucine and lysine, but be missing these other two, methionine and tryptophan amino acids. Grains, on the other, are the inverse. You can actually put these together and end up with a complementary protein set. Now you also have to be concerned with the digestibility of a protein, not just what amino acids are there. So that's where the protein digestibility correctness amino acid adjustment score comes from. That should be a capital S. This gives the protein a score based on how digestible it is. Again, most animal proteins are going to be highly digestible, at least the kind that you consume, and so this will give you a good score. So the meat, egg whites have one score of essentially 1. Low score would come from things that aren't as digestible. Gluten would be an example of one that's not very digestible. Now, there are animal proteins that aren't very digestible. That's why we don't consume hair or the hooves of animals, because you don't really get much nutrition out of them, even though they're made up of complete amino acid sets. Now, what are the DRIs for protein? So your recommended daily intake, it should comprise 10 to 35% of calories. There is actually no upper limit on protein intake, but there are problems that do arise when you take in too much. So your body's going to use the protein to function normally, but there are problems if you don't have enough energy that it won't use these properly. You can take in too much protein in the sense that after you have the protein that you need, your body's going to start using the protein for energy storage instead. So it's going to take the protein and convert it into fat that you'll store when you're taking in or break it down for energy. When you take in more protein than what your body needs as far as repair and maintenance of things. So it does contribute 4 calories per gram, so your body is going to be using this as sort of an energy source. The recommended intake, so adults are supposed to get 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, but this will be slightly higher in children.